All right, number one, socializing during the holidays. So what challenges can we face and what can you recommend to families?
I'd say definitely the biggest challenge when it comes to socializing is socializing. Really, like, I know personally, I get really burnt out after having to talk with people, even family members. And don't get me wrong, I love hanging out with my family, but when it's like a big dinner with like 25 people over, I tend to disappear into my room at some point during the night and
Hmm.
just take a bunch of breaks. Honestly, I think that's the best way to really regulate myself. So, my advice to any parents would be listen to what your child says and really just, if they need to have a break, let them have a break. Don't judge them for it. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Touching on what Jessica said, when you're often on like a long break of period, like maybe it's winter break or summer break for school, you're often like the norm is to socialize a lot. So I find that going 3 hours when someone visits and socializing the entire time, like Jessica said, can be very burnt out. I also understand that a lot of parents would like their kids to be polite and come up and say hi. So often, what we do in our family is my mom will have my brother and I come up for the first 15 minutes of the visit because, like I said, it's often 3 hours, so it can be really long. And then after those 15 minutes, we can go down and do our own thing. We've been polite for that, and we'll come up for dinner and socialize, but that way we don't have the worry of burning out. And I obviously love talking to my family, but when it comes to my dad's side, it can be up to 40 people at one place. And so that can be a lot. And so breaks are a good way to not burn out.
Right. So that's really great advice, allowing for a lot of breaks, a lot of downtime. And it sounds like even for caregivers or parents to front load their kids, their children, and say, hey, this is an expectation, just a small one, and then I'm going to let you have your time and, have, follow through on that. So the child trusts that the next time you need them to come and socialize for a few minutes, they trust that they're going to get that break really quickly
Yeah.
afterwards. Awesome. All right, on to the next. Alrighty, so challenge number two around the holidays that we wanted to address was food.
So for food, a lot of neurodivergent people have food aversions. I'm personally not someone that does, but during the holidays, there can be a lot of different foods. So, for example, at Thanksgiving, there can be turkey, cranberry sauce, stuffing, and a whole bunch of different sides. And that can be overwhelming, especially since often, in my family at least, it's everybody kind of brings dishes so the entire place doesn't have to cook because that can be really overwhelming for a lot of people. And if it's from a household that you're not used to, there can be foods and flavors that you're not comfortable with. So I find one way of doing that is take from what you know and maybe also bring some snacks on the side in case you get hungry. I find granola bars are great because I can get hungry while waiting, or sometimes there's just something that I'm not interested in. And so I know that I'll still need food, so I can just have that thing on the side to have.
So like a safety food.
Yeah, like a safety food. That's so that way you don't get super hungry and blow up at people because you're super hungry.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a better person when I've eaten.
Yeah. Touching up on what Drina said, yeah, definitely like bring snacks for your for the person you're helping, or also another thing is I feel like at family dinners or whatnot, when there's all that food out, I would just let your kid choose what they want to eat. Don't force them to. If it's something really unhealthy, that's okay. It's a holiday. You don't need you don't need to force them to eat other stuff.
Yeah, forcing your kid can lead to arguments, and it's a time where you want everyone to be calm. So yeah, let them eat what they want. Obviously, don't make them overload on sugar, but don't like force them to eat something if they really don't want to eat it.
Yeah, and a couple little things like having those safety foods there, I think is great. Foods that you know that you're the person that you're helping. I love how you worded that, Jessica. Or your child is comfortable with. It's a food that's safe for them and that they can eat, and they're not going to feel um, uh, overstimulated by it. And I love your point, Jessica, of let your child choose what they want to eat from the table, even if it's just all just stuffing or, one thing. That's again, those why we call it safety food is because those are the foods that feel safe to that child. If you're trying to make them eat different foods that are they're not comfortable with and force them to appease like your guests or the people that brought the food, that can feel also really unsafe for them. Right. And as I was mentioning to the two of you yesterday, or sorry, today, I did talk to a nutritionist last year about this, and something interesting that she mentioned was sometimes it's like the sugary foods, and that's the only thing that they can get their children to eat. She mentioned that if you can get some protein in them as well. So even if they're eating a lot of sugary foods, if you can get some nuts or some protein in them as well, that counteracts some of that effect that the sugar will have on their body. Awesome. That's it for food, I guess. All right. And number three, gift giving. So what are the challenges? What can caregivers and parents do to support their children?
Really with gift giving, be aware that some neurodiverse people may not like surprises. So maybe it might be a good idea to either let them know what they're getting or not have wrapping paper. Also, there's a sensory issue with wrapping paper, or there can be. So be really mindful of that. Another thing is if you give a gift to your child and maybe they don't respond the way you like them to, maybe no, that's no, they might no, they probably like it. Just, they I don't
Yeah,
know how to
it's tough for them. No, it's
yeah,
okay. I
it's
know
tough for
what
them.
you're trying to say. Like it can be tough for them to express what they're feeling, right? And we know masking, I mean, like we all mask to a degree, but like neurodiverse people definitely have a bigger weight on their shoulders in terms of masking. And that can be, it sounds like from your perspective, Jessica, that can be really tricky during like the present opening time on Christmas. And they might not react the right way or their facial expression. And so, what would your advice be to parents in that kind of scenario?
Don't get irritated with them or don't react negatively.
Hmm.
Just accept it
Hmm.
and just that's just part of them. That's just how they are.
That's just who they are, right? Not putting pressure on them to be a certain way or act a certain way. And I know some family members are like, oh, when you open grandma or grandpa's present, you have to do a big smile or a big reaction, and that can put a lot of social pressure on too. So if there's a way around that, maybe front loading grandma and grandpa that they might not smile and that's okay. They still like it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome.
For sure. Touching on what Jessica said, kind of in the moment, like especially on Christmas morning when you're unwrapping all the gifts and there's everybody there, that itself can be very sensory overwhelming. So that can be another reason why somebody might not smile or they might not say, "Oh, I love it" directly. It might be right now there's a lot of things happening. I really enjoy the gift and I will show much I appreciate the gift later when everything's a little more calm.
Mhm.
And that's another way you can be understanding. I think also kind of what Jessica said on surprises. If a neurodiverse person has given you a list of things they like, don't go off that list. Like meaning keep within the list. If you find something you think that they will like that's not on the list, maybe don't give it, stick to the list because you know they will absolutely like it. One way my family and I does this is, especially for Christmas, we have everybody make a list and we like post it on the door, and it has like 5 or 6 things that we'd like. And so that way you feel you know what somebody will like, and so you don't have to go chasing after them. Oh, can you give me a list of things that you'll like? There's just an expectation that you put a list on the door.
Takes a
Doesn't
bit of
have
the
to be
pressure
fancy or
off.
anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Amazing. Yeah, and that's wonderful. So thank you, Jessica and Gina, our board of advisors for NBCS, for your help as usual and your wonderful feedback.